Welcome to episode 42 of Fascinating, a Star Trek podcast. Obsession.
In this week's episode, Kirk causes alarm amongst his senior staff as he delays attending to a time-sensitive mission, putting numerous lives at risk. Determined to hunt down and destroy the creature that he holds responsible for the death of his first captain, Kirk puts his own crew in harm's way. But can he successfully destroy his enemy? Or has he made a terrible mistake?
Don't misunderstand my next question. Mr. Spock, why aren't you dead?
Good evening, Ian.
Good evening, Gerry. How are you today?
Not dead,
Me neither, for once.
so far.
Yep, fingers crossed.
All we can ask these days.
Absolutely. You enjoy this week's episode?
I was obsessed with it.
Really?
Nah,
How
it's
many
good.
times did you watch it?
Once.
Once.
It's quite good.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that they ran another Captain Ahab story so soon after Doomsday Machine.
That was my first note. And there's also many other similar plot devices and points in this episode. You've got the sexy ghost.
Yep, you've got the Kirk going after something from his past, like in Conscience of the King.
Mm-hmm. When I say sexy ghost, I mean that cloud.
Yeah, there's the Ephraim Cochrane one from Metamorphosis.
You thought it was sexy?
Not at first.
No.
Not when he realised it was doing things to him.
Do you think the use of these ghosts as creatures is a budgetary
Of course.
decision? Yeah.
Let's have as many wispy cloud monsters as possible.
Some guy with a smoke machine behind a rock.
Very much cheaper than costumes.
Yeah. Nonetheless, it was entertaining.
As usual. Anyway, do you want to make a start?
Let's crack on.
We begin on a planet.
Do we ever find out the name of the planet?
I'm not sure that we do. Kirk and Spock are examining a rock. We've seen them do this before in Devil in the Dark.
We've got some red shirts in tow.
And a plume of smoke appears behind them as Kirk gets on comms to tell Scotty that they can confirm this vein of whatever the valuable substance is.
Yeah, it's this substance is 21.4 times as hard as diamond.
Apparently, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure that's really useful.
Starfleet will want to send a team. Spock realises they won't be able to chip off a bit of this incredibly hard rock, so he phasers a bit off.
And as he does, what do we see?
Well, first of all, we see the smoke monster withdraw, or the smoke enemy at this stage.
Yeah.
And we see Leslie pass Kirk some gigantic plastic tongs, which I think, again, we've seen previously. Possibly again in Devil in the Dark, when the bit of the pizza monster came off.
The retreating of the gas, that was obviously just the film been reversed.
Yes. Did you enjoy it?
It's alright.
Yeah.
As he picks up this broken piece of rock, Kirk gets a whiff of something and comes over all strange.
Did you smell that? A sweet odor like honey. It was years ago. On another planet. A thing with an odor like that.
We're in the growing season in this hemisphere of this planet, Captain. There are doubtless many pollen aromas.
Rizzo,
Yes, sir.
take your men. Make a swing around our perimeter. Scan for dichloronium in the atmosphere. Set your phasers on Disruptor B. If you see any gaseous cloud, fire immediately. You're on red alert. Make a swing.
Ready to beam back aboard, Captain?
Negative, Scotty. We're checking something out.
The USS Yorktown is expecting to rendezvous with us in less than 8 hours, Captain. It doesn't give us much time.
Acknowledged. Continue standing by, Kirk.
Captain, dichloronium exists only in laboratory experiments.
It's gone. Couldn't be wrong. The last time I caught an odor like that was 11 years ago.
Disruptor B. What's this?
It's a setting on his phaser, I guess.
Made up
Yeah,
just for this episode.
I think so.
Not a common setting.
Never comes back.
Stun, destroy, Disruptor B.
Yeah, phaser 1, phaser 2.
Okay.
Is there any odours that you remember from 11 years ago
Yeah. Not suitable.
for discussion?
Yeah. Those were the days.
In a clearing, Rizzo thinks he has this reading that Kirk's asked him to look out for, but it vanishes quickly.
Now, Rizzo, I would always pronounce that Rizzo.
Yeah.
Like the famous Jerky Boys character, Frank Rizzo. Sizzle
Or
chest.
Rizzo the Rat from The Muppets.
Oh, that one, yeah. No, Frank Rizzo.
Or the Chicago Cubs first baseman, Anthony Rizzo. Any of those. Or Rizzo from Greece.
Was there not a Rizzo in Colombo as well? Coach Rizzo?
Think so.
I think there was, yeah.
Obviously quite a popular name.
Yeah, but not Rizzo.
No, not unless you're trying to be too Italian.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, yeah.
Pizza.
What happens?
He's got this dichironium reading, but it's vanished, and as he talks, this smoke comes from behind the group and takes out the other two red shirts.
I think one of them can sense that it's changing, or
Something's happening anyway.
yeah, two of them are choked to death.
It appears to be the case, and Rizzo calls for Kirk, asking for help as the smoke overwhelms him.
Before we move on, again, another example of appallingly trained crew members.
Yeah, they're meant to be on red alert, high alert, and they don't see something sneaking up from behind them.
Yeah, useless.
It's like that time that McCoy just hid behind a rock and nobody could find him.
Spock and Kirk run towards them. Is this a good idea?
Well, Kirk thinks he knows what they're running towards,
Yeah, exactly.
so perhaps he would be...
A very dangerous entity.
Yeah, but they're not going to be snuck up on. At least these two are probably a little bit more alert.
He finds 3 grey bodies.
Well, 2 of them are grey. One of them's a bit pink.
Was it?
Yeah.
I thought they were all grey.
No.
One less grey than the other.
Yeah, I don't think Rizzo is that grey.
Okay. And he states that they will find that every red corpuscle has been removed from their bodies.
Is that just red blood cells?
I think so. I don't bother looking it up. I don't know if a corpuscle's a real thing or not.
I think maybe it is, but I think I would just say red blood cells to be...
To not look like an
to be understandable. Yeah. It's like last week when he just said perigee for no reason and never does it. He doesn't do it in this episode either.
No. However, Rizzo is alive, only barely.
Only just. Spock asks Kirk what this thing was, obviously knowing that Kirk has some information he doesn't.
What does he say?
Kirk's a bit vague and says it's something that can't possibly exist, but does.
Dun, dun, dun. Credits.
Yeah, then a captain's log.
3619.2.
The 2 crewmen are dead, so they've all gone back to the ship.
In McCoy's office,
Yes, Kirk, McCoy and Nurse Chapel are discussing Rizzo's condition.
Kirk hands over the autopsy report as Chapel tells him that Rizzo is still unconscious and his blood count is still 60% down on what it should be.
She leaves, I think, to finish off a blood transfusion, and Kirk gets on comms to Spock.
Video call. Keeps his shirt on this time.
He does. He tells Spock to delay departure, and Scotty cuts in to once again remind Kirk of their scheduled rendezvous with the Yorktown.
Scotty is quite irritable or irritated at Kirk, and it's understandable.
Yeah, it's almost like Kirk has said to Scotty, don't let me miss this rendezvous. Make sure you remind me.
Yeah.
And Scotty's just doing it every time he gets an opportunity.
Kirk tells him they'll be late as they have to maintain orbit, and McCoy points out that the Yorktown surgeon will want to know how late due to the perishable vaccines that they have on board. And this, I think, happened in a previous episode.
Possibly Conscience of the King as well.
Yeah.
There was a pandemic, I believe they were responding to on that occasion.
And at that time, he didn't bother about he put himself and his own
obsession
above the health and safety of thousands of other people.
Spock at this point reiterates the point that Scotty and McCoy were making, and he says the vaccines are badly needed over on Theta 7.
Yeah, but the stubborn Kirk makes a terrible decision and refuses to leave orbit, even though it may cost the lives of all those down there. I mean, this is quite a wow moment.
Yeah, he basically says these unnamed people that I don't know are not relevant to this consideration.
He says, F them.
Essentially. He asks McCoy for the autopsy report, which confirms that the red blood cells were removed, but there were no incisions, no cuts, and it would appear to be medically impossible. This reminded me a bit of the salt monster from the Man Trap.
So Kirk advises McCoy to look at the records again, where he will find the USS Farragut and the casualties from 11 years prior.
A very similar case.
Mm-hmm. So a clearly disturbed McCoy says that he will do that before he is asked to bring Rizzo around for a moment.
Yeah, this seems crazy.
I don't even know if it's the type of thing that you would do as a doctor. Or, yeah, bring him around. I know he's unconscious, but you can bring him around for a minute. That's all. I only need a minute.
He's
Bring him
going to
around.
die anyway, so...
I mean, if he can be brought round safely, you would have.
Yeah.
So you really shouldn't, Captain. He's in a coma here.
He's in an induced coma, yeah.
Bring him around for a minute.
Through at Rizzo's bedside, Nurse Chapel confirms that the blood transfusion is now complete, but his respiration and his pulse remain poor.
Yeah, and she is also hesitant in giving him a reviving
She
shot.
looks shocked when McCoy gives the order.
Yeah. However, she does it, and he wakes, and after complaining about the cold, he confirms that he does remember a strange smell that was being like smothered in honey. Honey.
He seems a bit vague and foggy, and quickly starts to fade again, and McCoy says there's no way they can risk a second stimulant.
Kirk has heard enough to convince him that he knows what is happening, and leaves, reminding McCoy to go and check the records.
Yes, after Kirk leaves, Chapel questions what's going on, and McCoy says he intends to find out by heading to the medical records library.
Can we get last week we had a montage of research.
Did we?
I think we did, yeah. We were trying to find the antidote.
Okay, yeah, we should have one here, McCoy flicking through
The
records.
books, yeah. Newspaper cuttings and things
Eye
like
of
that.
the Tiger
Microfiche.
playing. Yeah.
As he learns. Up on the bridge, Kirk enters and brushes aside a message Uhura is trying to deliver, and instead tells her to have security report to him immediately.
Spock continues to see no life signs on the planet, so Kirk suggests maybe it's a different kind of life.
Yeah, I mean, Spock is even scanned for dichronium, but there is no trace. So Kirk goes full leapy here and suggests that it may be hiding from the scan.
Yeah. Spock says that would require the ability to change its molecular structure. Now, my reading of this is Spock's being facetious, but Kirk takes it as a brilliant idea and sends him down to speak to McCoy.
Reminded me of the Blackadder episode from Blackadder 2, where Percy has changed common metal into green.
Yes, he's trying to develop gold, wasn't he?
Yeah, didn't get that far.
After Spock leaves, or as he leaves, an ensign arrives to report for duty. And his name gives Kirk pause for thought.
Yeah, it's Garovic, the son of someone who Kirk knows, and from what we can gather, it would appear that he's someone important or relevant.
Certainly relevant. Kirk confirms, however, that this will not lead to the ensign receiving any special treatment.
Uhura then interrupts with a report on Rizzo.
He's dead.
Okay, Uhura, brief me if there's any change in that condition.
Yeah. Garovic seems upset about this, and Kirk discovers that he and Rizzo came through the academy together.
Yep, he was just up for retirement or something like that.
It was his last mission. Kirk promises Garovic a crack at the creature that killed his friend.
An opportunity that he accepts, and so is told to go and get four others with phasers set to disrupt her and to be in the transport room in 5 minutes.
I wonder if these are prototype phasers that only got used in this episode. The graphic that they use, or the CGI for Garovic's phaser, is different from what we've seen in other episodes.
Is it?
Yeah, I'll see that later.
Okay. Down on the planet, the tricorders show that there is indeed a molecular change, and they have dichronium readings, and they have identified its source.
Kirk remarks that Spock was right, although I still don't think he was actually suggesting it as a theory.
No. Green.
The landing party splits in two, and Garovic's group are approached by this cloud.
Yeah, and he hesitates, he pauses, and even when he fires, the other two red shirts are attacked.
Yes, and his shot misses.
Before Kirk arrives on the scene.
Yeah, having heard the phaser, he and his team run over, find the two men on the ground blue or grey, depending.
He loses an awful lot, doesn't he, of crew members. Does he replenish them?
Well, someone sends them more.
Yeah, does he go back down and say, listen, I've lost another 10 red shirts. Don't worry, we'll send you up another batch.
Yeah, probably. How many this week, Captain? 4?
Have you got the paperwork? Oh, come on. I'm a rebel, I'm a renegade, I don't do paperwork.
We'll put these ones down as line of duty.
Yeah,
Yep.
Captain's log.
Yeah, while we hear this, we see Nurse Chapel attending to the surviving one of the two grey men, and then Kirk alone in the briefing room.
3619.6. One of them is dead, the other in critical condition, and he is convinced that it is the same creature that massacred those on the Farragut. However, he knows that McCoy and Spock are doubtful of this, and are even less convinced that they should stay and fight.
Spock and McCoy and Garvik now enter the briefing room where Kirk is sitting.
Yeah, Garvik joins him and describes what he saw, but tells McCoy that he didn't sense that it was a living creature.
Well, he didn't not sense it. He doesn't have any feel for that at all. Kirk asks how he managed to miss a hovering cloud with his phaser from 20 feet away.
Yeah, and after an embarrassed sort of pause, he admits to hesitating for a moment. And this enrages Kirk, who relieves him of all duties and dismisses him.
He confines him to his quarters, yeah. And after he leaves, McCoy suggests that Kirk was harsh, but is immediately shot down.
Yeah, he's not listening. He's not interested in listening, and tells them to put whatever they have to say in their reports.
We see Garvik return to his quarters at this point and flings himself down on the bed, distraught.
Like a stroppy teenager who's been told that he can't go out on Friday night.
There was some interesting green and purple lighting in this scene, both in the briefing room and in Garvik's quarters.
Yeah.
Meant to obviously show a low mood, I think.
Okay. Back up in the bridge, Kirk enters and tells Scotty they won't be leaving orbit, even though he is again reminded about the medicine. This is some really, I've not seen it for a few weeks, really poor decision making on Kirk's behalf as the commander of a ship.
Yeah, it's very similar to Conscience of the King, where he's gone off on his own without involving his crew and his advisors in what he's trying to achieve.
Yeah, something from his past. It's personal.
Yeah. Scotty slips in a line here about working on one of the engine vents while they're sitting there anyway. And Uhura says the Yorktown wants an update on the rendezvous, but she's once again fobbed off.
Yeah, and I think before that, he berates his staff for apparently conspiring against him. It was very harsh.
Well, that's when Scotty says for the third time how desperately the colony needs the medicine. He does snap, but he immediately walks back on the word conspire, and Scotty quickly agrees that he was wrong to say that.
However, he continues with his aggressive attitude towards Chekhov, who has not found anything on the scanners, even though he's run full scans twice.
Yeah, as if it's his fault. He's criticised by Kirk for this.
Yeah, it tells him to run it 20 times if required before storming out, leaving them all open-mouthed. 20 times, it's not a good use of time or resources.
No.
If it hasn't shown anything twice, then accept it.
Yeah, this is a reason.
Yeah.
Down in McCoy's office at sickbay, McCoy is pleased to be interrupted from his reading of these autopsy reports by Spock.
Yeah, who needlessly apologises to him for interrupting, as you say.
Spock confounds McCoy at this stage by asking for advice.
Yeah, I think I liked that McCoy said that the request would send him to drink.
Indeed, Spock is so out of expectations here that he has to rephrase his request before McCoy can even respond.
Yeah, he takes a different approach to air his concern.
Perhaps I should rephrase my statement. I require an opinion. There are many aspects of human irrationality I do not yet comprehend. Obsession, for one. A persistent, single-minded fixation on one idea.
Jim and his creature.
Precisely. Have you studied the incident involving the USS Farragut?
No, with all these deaths and injuries, I've only had a chance to scan the tapes. There are 8 or 10 hours of record tapes there.
Fortunately, I read somewhat faster. In brief, Doctor, nearly half the crew and the captain were annihilated. The captain's name was Garvik.
Same as our ensign.
His father. Among the survivors was a young officer on his first deep space assignment, James T. Kirk. And there is still more. I suggest you study this.
Interesting.
What I do find interesting is that Spock can't understand obsession. I would have guessed that obsession would have been a trait that Vulcans would be understanding of.
Yes, it's logical to focus with a single mind on the accomplishment of a task, if it's considered to be of significance.
Yeah.
Anyhow, we now get a personal log from Kirk. We see him in his quarters lying in his bed, staring at the ceiling as he records his own melancholy.
Yeah, 36:20.7. We hear that some self-doubt exists regarding his decision to stay and fight whilst putting his crew at risk.
He's not going to let them see this doubt, though, is he?
No, or this personal log. They all might die.
Password
but
protect.
It's worth it.
McCoy enters and Kirk quickly ignores him to get a no update from Chekhov over comms.
Yeah, this seems to deflate him. Ending the call, Kirk claims that it can't just have vanished. And a philosophical McCoy responds that sometimes they do.
And perhaps the biggest monster of all is your guilt.
Yeah, he goes on to defend the actions of a young, inexperienced officer under pressure. And Kirk snaps that he is speaking out of turn, as Garvik is his responsibility.
Yeah, he thinks McCoy's straying out of his lane, but McCoy counters with the fact that he's not talking about Garvik at all. He's referring to Kirk's actions 11 years earlier.
I like that.
Yeah, I mean, it was a bit obvious, but yeah.
Yeah, not obvious to Kirk.
No. Kirk advises or confirms that he does still feel responsible for that incident, despite senior officers commending his performance.
Yeah, he also, at that time, hesitated and delayed in firing at the creature.
Yeah, he feels responsible for Captain Garvik's death. And he says it comes down to his feelings in this matter. Ultimately, he is convinced this is a creature which is both intelligent and malevolent.
And it killed 200 people. That's a lot of deaths.
Yeah, but then weather kills people and doesn't have any malevolence about it.
That's true. He gets a bit manic and claims that he could have killed it had he fired sooner. But McCoy tells him he doesn't know this, and the same goes for Garvik.
McCoy says that Kirk is obsessed at this point, and Kirk says he's pushing their friendship to its limits before McCoy counters with the killer blow.
What's that?
This is not a friend giving advice, this is his professional judgment, which is a bit of a shocker for Kirk, I think.
Yeah.
It's not what he expected, to have his command questioned for the second mission in a row.
Yeah, I mean, he says he's endangering himself and everyone else.
He's preparing a medical log, but he needs a command at level witness, but conveniently, there's one behind this door.
Yes. Who comes in?
Spock. He's standing outside, hovering, as Kirk asks whether the two of them consider him unfit.
Yeah, and he again is deflated as Spock agrees with the assessment as per the manual.
Well, he reads directly from the manual and invokes a procedure essentially where they have to interrogate the captain on the reasoning behind his command decisions.
But Kirk tells them to forget the manual and simply ask their questions. So they start by inquiring why they are not delivering the perishable medicines.
And Kirk's only explanation is that he is convinced this is the same creature that attacked the Farragut 11 years earlier.
Spock then asks about the use of the term creature.
Yes, he wants to know what reason Kirk has to believe this is something sentient.
And Kirk refers him to his taped report and explains that when he was attacked 11 years ago, he could sense its consciousness and intelligence. I'm not sure if this is a
mumbo jumbo.
Yeah.
Well, McCoy calls this out, saying that a man who's passing out may well struggle to tell the difference between reality and imagination.
Yeah, the mind will play tricks on you.
McCoy, though, has to concede that something has killed 3 or 4 of their men by this point.
Yes, and if it is intelligent and is the same creature, it could pose an incredible risk to all inhabited planets.
Kirk says that these are the things his intuition prioritises.
Yeah, and he then tells them they've done their duty, asked the right questions before asking as to the content of McCoy's report.
McCoy says he's going to leave it open for now, which means Kirk will remain in command.
And before they can debate it any further, Chekhov communicates through with news.
He has a reading. The cloud is heading out to space.
So Kirk orders a red alert and to prepare to leave orbit.
Yes, they're going to pursue this creature.
Now, up on the bridge to an almost... I noticed this a few times in the episode. There was an almost psycho-type score.
Yeah, it's underlying this sort of obsession theme, isn't it?
Yeah, which I did enjoy. I did appreciate.
Yeah. There's obviously been a bit of a time lapse because they're now in pursuit at warp 8 and cannot keep it going much longer, according to Scotty.
No. Spock tells them that they're barely, in any case, barely closing in and it could take days at this rate to catch it.
Kirk's fine with that and asks Scotty to increase their speed.
Yeah, and also to have the screen magnified by 12. Is this another made-up thing just for this episode? Magnified by 12?
I mean, it's just to get it to fill the screen.
Yeah, it is, but
It's to do with how far away it is. It's fine.
Yeah, okay.
They magnify quite regularly.
I can't remember it happening so far.
Pretty sure they did it with one of the Klingon ships or one of the Romulan ships.
You sure? Magnify?
I'm not sure. I think they do.
Alright.
It happens a lot after this anyway.
Anyway, this allows them to see the cloud-like entity in front of them.
Spock says that the data he's receiving is in conflict. There's both matter and energy as part of this creature.
Yeah, he finds it impressive, but doesn't necessarily consider it intelligent.
No. Chekhov at this point notes an alarm that says there's an open vent on the impulse engine, but Kirk says, turn that alarm off, it doesn't matter, we're not using the impulse engines.
Yeah, an anxious Scotty tells them that they will blow up any minute if they keep up the speed that they're currently doing.
Yeah, everyone looks quite concerned, and
yeah, there's a tense few moments here.
Ultimately, although frustrated, Kirk orders that they slow to warp 6.
Over in Garvik's quarters, he is still lying in his bed when Chapel enters with food, but he's not hungry and would rather know what is going on.
Are we still chasing that thing halfway across the galaxy? Yes. Has the captain lost his sense of balance? Maybe. Is the entire crew about ready to explode positively? You're lucky you're out of it.
What do you mean out of it? I caused it. You know that too, don't you? If I'd fired my phaser quickly enough on Arcus 10, this wouldn't have happened.
You know, self-pity is a terrible first course. Why don't you try the soup instead?
I told you, Christine, I'm not hungry.
Dr. McCoy thought you might say something like that. This is his officially logged prescription for you. It has one word on it, eat. Now, if you don't follow his orders, Dr. McCoy could, and possibly would, have you hauled down to sickbay and fed intravenously.
I suppose it's better than being fed
With suppositories.
Yes,
It seems premature. He's only been in his room for a couple of hours.
that's true.
Why are they feeding him intravenously? He wouldn't eat his lunch. Right, to the sick bay
Hunger
with you.
hunger. I'm not on hunger strike.
I'm just not hungry yet.
Chapel's getting quite. She's getting quite spunky, isn't she?
Quite cocky. I suppose this might reflect the actress.
Or the relationship in real life.
Yeah.
That she feels as if she's got a bit more power now and a bit more.
Do more with the character, yeah.
Yeah. Or less likely to be sacked.
Yes, perhaps. All ad-libbed.
Up in sickbay, she returns.
Yeah, she returns that order record to McCoy, who wants to know why she's got this tape that's got something else altogether. She was obviously bluffing.
Yeah. And she says she's just been practicing psychology on Garvik, which appears to give McCoy an idea.
It does. Up on the bridge, to Chekhov's extreme confusion, the creature is not pulling away from them.
No, it's slowed down to warp 2, and Kirk thinks that it may have decided to stop and fight.
He orders that they ready phasers.
We head back down to Garvik. He has a bit of a freak out.
Yeah, we've seen Chapel's soup projected in this way before.
Yeah.
In Amok time, if you remember the plomeek soup that Spock threw at her.
Yeah, bit nasty.
So Garvik chucks his meal across the room and we see it knock the switch on his ventilation filter to bypass.
This is definitely only for this episode. Why would you have such a specific switch?
Allow monster in, yes or no.
He then hears the red alert and the call to battle stations.
Yes, and he doesn't want to wait in his room and miss the battle.
No, he's right up for it. Up on the bridge, the thing has now stopped and is right in front of them. So Kirk orders phasers to be fired as he ignores Garvik's request to return to duty.
Well, obviously he's busy with something right now.
Yeah. Boss, what is it? Can you give me a second?
I'm literally shooting the enemy.
Boss, can I help? Anything I can do, boss? Bugger off.
The creature seems to manipulate itself around the phaser fire and it goes through a gap, and the same sort of thing happens with the photon torpedoes that follow.
Well, you see the same thing happens. They do have an effect.
Well, they piss it off.
Yeah, it's now coming towards them. So they run away. They raise their deflectors, even though Spock states that won't stop it.
Yeah, and Spock is now regretting not believing Kirk all along because he should have figured a lot of this stuff out earlier.
Well, regrets not believing Kirk, but also regrets not overruling Kirk's...
Getting away from this monster that's now coming on board. Chekhov suddenly panics, remembering that they left the impulse vent open earlier on. And Scotty says, something's coming in the impulse vent.
So they get into the war room, the briefing room. McCoy...
Well, before that, though, Kirk orders negative pressure in the vents.
That's true. McCoy tells them it has attacked 2 of the crew, and they only have air for about 2 hours.
For the third time, one man is dead and the other is critically ill. It seems that this machine, or this cloud, can consume the red blood cells of 1.9 men at a time.
McCoy is very cutting here.
Yes, he tells Kirk to add this onto his tally for the monster hunt.
Oh, not just the monster hunt. McCoy must be keeping a tally of all the crew that he's lost. So at one point when he really falls out with him, he's like, is that right? Is that right, Captain? Look, 347 people you've...
One day, Kirk's going to go down and open the whiskey cupboard, and there's going to be like tally marks in the woods and the inside of the door. They argue briefly before Spock steps in to say that it doesn't really matter what they should have done because they're here now.
Yeah, I suppose.
Kirk wants to know why the creature approached the Enterprise, but Spock has no answer. Scotty's then ordered to flush radioactive waste through the ventilation system.
Where are they getting this radioactive waste from? Why are they carrying it?
Probably from the engines.
You think?
That'll be a byproduct.
This is just in this episode as well.
Also, why are you putting radioactive waste into your ventilation system?
I know. It's not, for a start, it's not like airtight or anything. It's got to seep out everywhere.
You would think. Scotty heads off to do that.
Yeah, very like the system that you're... Even if it kills the creature, you're now breathing in radioactive waste.
We're all dead. The good news is, the creature didn't kill us.
Yeah.
The bad news is we've all got cancer and we're going to be dead in 5 years.
All living like...
It's a bit like Chernobyl.
That's what I was going to say,
yeah. Scotty and McCoy also heads out. He gives a brief apology and heads off.
Where are we now?
Spock is trying to explain that Kirk couldn't have killed the creature 11 years ago, and Garrick couldn't have killed it this time, and they know that now because of what happened with the ship's phasers, but Kirk tells him to get lost, analyse somebody else.
Garrick's quarters, Spock enters and...
he tries to analyse somebody else.
And he admits that he feels unsettled by the apparent failure on the planet. Yeah, his apparent failure, I should say.
Yeah, before they get much further, though, he smells something sweet and sickly, and Spock immediately gets him to leave the room.
Yeah, before that, Spock tries to ease his fears by telling him that hesitation and uncertainty is a uniquely human trait. Or maybe not uniquely, but certainly a human trait.
Yeah, but like I say, he doesn't get very far through this process.
But he throws him out of the room.
Yeah, he physically hurls him out. And as Garrick gets to the communicating panel to tell the captain what's happening, Spock tries to close the vent, but has a bit of a misfortune.
Yeah, well, we see that the switch that had been obviously broken by Garrick, he's really causing a lot of problems
the
ship here. The first one is understandable. Like, he froze a little bit. This one just petulance.
Yes, and the switch breaks off in Spock's hand as he tries to repair the setting.
Yeah, so illogically, he tries to stop gas with bare hands.
Yeah, they don't cover the vent and have big gaps in them. Stupid idea.
So, for that, he gets engulfed.
Yep. Up on the bridge, Kirk, having heard from Garrick, orders Scotty to reverse the pressure in that cabin. And as he does so, we see the cloud sucked back into the vent.
In the corridor, outside Garrick's room, Kirk prevents a red shirt from breaking the door down. McCoy doesn't know why, but Kirk doesn't want to risk the creature escaping into the ship. But surely, the doors aren't going to be... It's a gas. It'll be like under the door.
Yeah, he's being very careful. Okay. A bit late now.
Yeah.
Garrick says Spock has saved his life and he should be the one lying dead in there and not the Vulcan.
Yeah, because he broke the ventilation system.
Spock, with his usual perfect sense of timing, opens the door and says, "Aha! Look, it's me. I'm not dead."
Yeah. It tells Kirk the reverse pressure order worked. The vent is now closed.
McCoy very quickly realises that it's because of Spock's green blood that he has survived. He doesn't have the same volume of red blood cells as everybody else.
Yeah, Spock confirms that the green blood is copper-based, not iron-based.
At this point, Kirk notes there's a different smell.
Yeah, he starts to sniff the air like a pervert.
Like a witch finder.
Or a witch finder.
And he uses his newfound olfactory communication skills to determine what the creature is doing.
Scotty then communicates to tell him that it is now moving back towards the impulse vent, and so Kirk instructs him to open it up before calling Garrovick over to have a word with him.
You were on the bridge when we were attacked.
Yes, I'm sorry, sir. I know I was confined to quarters, but when the alert
Very
sounded,
commendable, Ensign. What was your impression of the battle?
I don't understand, sir.
I'm asking for your military appraisal of the techniques used against the creature.
Ineffective, Captain. I realize, Captain, you did everything you could do. I know that. It's just that nothing works against a monster that can do the things that thing does.
And, Ensign, what is your appraisal of your conduct on the planet?
I delayed firing.
And if you hadn't delayed firing? No difference, Ensign. No weapon known would have made any difference. Then, or 11 years ago. Report for duty, Ensign.
See, I've got a problem with this. It's okay, it doesn't make any difference. Because that's fine just now if that's the case, but he bottled it.
Yeah, they might as well give him a participation trophy.
Yeah, I mean, what happens next time when he's up against a normal alien and he panics and doesn't, it's not...
Well, I suppose hopefully he'll learn from this and not repeat the error.
I'm not sure if you can learn from it, isn't it? I mean, you might learn, you learn that you when it comes to it, you bottle
Trust your
it.
instincts.
Yeah, run away.
Run away. Chekhov up on the bridge now reports that the cloud is leaving at warp speed.
Yeah, and is nearly out of scanner range. Based on his intuition, Kirk thinks he knows where it is going.
It's not just his intuition, it's his power of smell.
And tells Scotty to give him as much speed as he can as they pursue it into the Tychos star system. Is that right?
Yeah, something like that. Yes, Kirk thinks the cloud is heading for the planet where they first encountered it.
Okay. He then tells Uhura to let Starfleet and Yorktown know that they are going to the location of its attack 11 years prior.
Yes, and the rendezvous will have to be delayed by 48 hours. And then he reveals that the smell told him the cloud wanted to go home.
Yeah,
Nonsense. Utter.
Yeah, how can he interpret smells? Like,
Yeah, since when did he have this power?
He's not got it. You can certainly, it's acceptable to smell something sickly sweet or sour or whatever, but you can't
Turn into words.
You can't turn an alien creature's smell into and interpret that.
It no longer smells of honey, it smells of I want to go home.
There you go, yeah, rocket.
Spock at this stage agrees that the creature must be destroyed, but McCoy is more concerned about the perishable vaccines. Spock at this point just makes something up to shut McCoy down.
Yeah, he tells him that the creature will spawn into 1,000 times the number.
Well, hasn't it done it before now?
I know. And how do you 1,000? Yeah, he's just making stuff up. You're right, yeah.
Kirk suggests there's only one solution.
Antimatter.
But no weapon known will harm it, he said, not that long ago.
And Spock straight away, he's on board with it. Yeah, about an ounce. From the ship's engines, that'll be enough.
Kirk tells Garrovick to get some hemoplasm as well to use as bait.
Yeah, it's interesting that it's plasma, not plasma. Anyway.
Spock says this blast will rip away half of the planet's atmosphere and they may lose the people they are transporting.
Like a mere trifle. Half a planet's atmosphere? No, don't worry about that.
Kirk says, yeah, we'll take that chance. And Spock volunteers because his blood makes him less of a target for the creature.
Yeah, it's not just the planet and the people, it's the Enterprise itself if it's within range of the shockwaves.
Yeah. Kirk says Spock cannot go to the planet because he's the one that's obsessed with this creature, so you can get lost.
Yeah.
And we need you to do plan B, whatever that is, in case I get killed.
Yeah.
Garrovick tries to volunteer to go with Kirk, but is told he's already been selected. You can't quit, you've been fired.
Oh, I was kind of hoping that you'd say, no, you can't. Oh, no. Walked into this one. Okay.
Down on the surface, there's a brief exchange between Kirk and Garrovick about the tonnage of the weapon and what it can do, but they've accidentally left their bait lying at the other side of the valley.
I thought I quite like this. It's quite an interesting looking antimatter container they have. I was impressed with it, and it floats. It's a ball
anti-gravity.
Yeah.
They prime their weapon as Kirk confirms the situation to Spock on comms, but meanwhile the cloud comes along and drinks all the blood that they had with them.
Yep, there goes that plan.
They need new bait, so Kirk orders Garvik to return to the ship, and Kirk will be the bait. But Garvik immediately mutinies and tries to take Kirk out.
This is the only time in this episode, in this show, where the old karate chop to the back of the neck doesn't work.
Yeah, it doesn't work on Kirk. It's his move. You can't use Kirk's move on himself.
Kirk's been in training down in the gym with his top off, getting people to hit him, karate chop him, and they're like, oh, and that's okay. So
Do it again.
Again.
The captain obviously now defeats the ensign and tells him to consider himself on report, but also we're not dying.
No, what happens next?
He contacts Spock and tells him to lock onto them because they're dealing with very fine margins here. And as the cloud approaches, he has to hold his nerve to the last second before arming the bomb.
The music builds up along with the tension as the creature approaches, and they detonate it and beam up just at the same time.
Yes, the explosion goes off and we don't know if they've survived.
I wonder if they will. Up in the transporter room, there's a problem.
Yeah, the men cannot be reassembled on the platform very easily, so Spock first cross-circuits to A, then cross-circuits to B, and at that point Scotty can beam them in safely.
Yeah, I just wrote, he twiddles with some knobs.
Yes, McCoy says thank heavens, and Spock says, what do you mean thank heavens? It was me, I done it.
I like that, it was good. So Mac, pitchforks and pointed ears.
Yes. Anyhow, without checking that they have actually killed the creature, they celebrate their victory.
They high-five me all round as the gas oozes back in.
And head off back to the Yorktown. And Kirk tells Garvik, come down to my quarters later and we'll have some booze and talk about your dad.
Yeah, some tall tales. I'll tell you how good he was. Oh, he was a shagger.
Yeah. He hated your mum. Cheated on her every mission. Any alien he could find.
But we all did.
That's where I learned it. And that's the end. Off to the next adventure. I thought that Kirk should be a bit angrier at Garvik for trying to take him out on the planet.
Yes.
That's literally mutiny.
Yeah.
He's like, boys will be boys.
So that's 3 major cock-ups he's made in this episode. The hesitation, the breaking the switch, and now then trying to knock out your captain. He's not cut out for this work.
Yeah. I did think that for all that there were a lot of repeated elements, the episode still seemed quite fresh, and there was some good background on Kirk and some more character development.
Yeah, I had no issue with it at all. Although reverting back to Kirk's incredibly bad decision making, again, we've not really witnessed that for a few episodes, but it's good to see that he's not forgotten how to make an arse of it.
Yeah, no, if I'd been writing this episode, the final scene after that scene would have been back on the planet's surface. There's like a crater, and then the cloud kind of floats it.
Yeah, so you can get another episode out of it. Yeah, the return of the cloud creature.
Someone must have done a novel. Someone will tell us.
I'm
There's
sure.
a novel about this creature having survived the blast.
Of course. Like a blast not going to kill that, is it?
It would have been nice to learn a bit more about the creature rather than just, it's bad, kill it.
Mm-hmm.
I thought the Federation used violence as a last resort.
Spock should have done a mind. I've not seen that for a while, actually. The old mind meld.
Yeah, no.
Be good. Yeah, Spock should have talked to it.
I thought that having Garvik as a one-shot character is a bit of a missed opportunity.
Do you think?
You've built this connection between him and Kirk. You've got the connection with his father, and then it's just we never see him again.
Yeah, but I've done before. We've had Kirk's family members dying.
Yeah,
like that,
that's it. You're done.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they didn't kill him. He's alive. He's on the ship. They just never see him again.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting. Apparently, Leslie gets killed by the cloud quite early on, but then he shows up in the background of later scenes.
Never noticed.
They cut a scene where McCoy saved him.
Right. After the red shirts, all look the same to me.
Yeah. Should we go with some trivia?
Yeah.
You got any more thoughts?
No, I enjoyed it.
Okay, originally aired on the 15th of December 1967. Directed by Ralph Sinensky.
Where's JP?
He'll be back soon.
Okay.
This was the third of 6 for Sinensky. We discussed him in more detail back on the podcast for This Side of Paradise. Art Wallace was the writer. This was the first of 2 original series episodes that he wrote. He also wrote shows like The Bill Cosby Show, Space 1999, but he's perhaps best known for creating the Dark Shadows series. He won 2 Daytime Emmys, and he died in 1994.
Naming a show after the actor is a very American peculiarity. Well, there are 2 I think of immediately: is the Cosby Show and the Andy Griffith Show.
Ray Milland Show.
Yeah,
we talked about that last week.
Mm-hmm. I've not watched it. Was Ray Milland not playing himself in that?
No, he played a character.
Did he?
Mm-hmm.
I've not seen it.
I've not seen it either, but I was reading about it last week for the trivia.
But I don't think we've ever had that in the UK. You wouldn't have it.
I'm trying to think. Something Jules thingies Hootenanny.
No, that's just because he's playing himself in that. That's fine. But the Cosby Show is nothing to do with Bill Cosby. He's playing the Huxtables.
If you follow the court cases, Lorraine Kelly in the morning, she's playing a character, she says. So she doesn't pay tax.
Lorraine Kelly, jeez. But yeah, but it's very... It's obviously they're using the star name.
Yeah, it sells the premise.
But it seems it's quite ego-driven as well.
Yeah, and they don't play themselves, so it's the act. Literally, this guy's in this show.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
It's
Andy Griffith's show was just, hey, look, we've got Andy Griffith, you know him from these other things, and now he's got a show. We'll just call what we call it, maybe we'll just call it the Andy Griffith Show.
Maximise the value in our investment there.
Yeah. It's like, we'll just call Coronation Street the Bill Roach Show.
Yeah. Or we'll call EastEnders the Shane Ritchie Show.
Yeah. Or what you call him?
Leslie
Grantham Show. Oh, that's an entirely different show. Do not be looking up Leslie Grantham's own show.
His home videos, yeah.
No.
Is he dead?
Yes. But he was a murderer as well, so fair, you can see what you like about him.
Yeah. Also, because he's dead, he can't sue you.
Anyway.
Stephen Brooks played Ensign Garrovick, his only Star Trek appearance, but he also showed up in series like Days of Our Lives and the FBI. But he died from a heart attack in 1999 when he was just 57.
That's unfortunate.
Gerry Ayres played Rizzo.
This
is his second and final appearance in the series. You hear more about him from when he played O'Hurley in Arena, if you go back to that podcast. There's no Columbo connection, but an interesting one is Basil Polidorus. He just played a security guard in this episode. It was the second of 3 uncredited roles. He was in Errand of Mercy, and he's got another one coming up. But he was primarily a musician, and he contributed to the soundtracks of movies like The Hunt for Red October and Conan the Barbarian, and he's the man who composed the theme tune to RoboCop.
Really? Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good trivia.
He died in 2006 at the age of 61.
There you go. 61, quite young as well, eh? Very young.
Yeah. Yeah, you're nearly that age now.
Mm-hmm.
So. In terms of other trivia, this is the episode where it's established that Vulcan blood is copper-based, not iron-based. There's no Sulu in this one, you'll have noticed.
I did notice.
Given the central premise of the episode is a creature that can be detected by scent, we can only assume that this was the inspiration for Calvin Klein's later Obsession perfume.
Yeah, of course.
And in terms of international titles, just a couple.
Was it not Aftershave? Obsession for Men?
I think it's both.
Is it?
Yeah.
No, but I think it was called For Men.
The original one.
Or was it?
No, it was Obsession, and then Obsession for Men was a spin-off product.
Was it?
Men, I think.
Right, okay, yeah.
International titles, you've got the Germans with Todliche Wolken, which is Deadly Clouds.
Mm-hmm.
And our friends in Japan went for Fukushu Gasukayo, which means Revenge Gas Monster.
Yeah, fine.
That's what they call you in the office. Next week, 14th episode of Season 2, Wolf in the Fold, which is the one where Scotty gets accused of murder.
I would suggest that he was guilty.
Based on
believe it, yeah.
Stuff with Apollo, yeah. In the meantime, all of our social media, we are at Trek Podcast, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. And if you go to StarTrekPodcast.com, you can find a post up for each episode to leave your thoughts and feelings and emotions. And if you prefer to listen to your podcasts on YouTube, our episodes go up there on a weekly basis as well.
Okay, until then,
cheerio.
Bye-bye.